Guy we met when we were chatting, Clinton Desveaux, based in Halifax, a fearless advocate of all things electric vehicle, freelance writer, and he's arguing in a recent piece he wrote, and I saw this the other day, on the production of lithium, which of course is necessary in batteries, particularly in car batteries, and in many oil-producing parts of this country, the potential for more lithium to be extracted. We find Clinton Desveaux in Halifax today. Hey, good to have you back. Let's talk a little about this argument you're making that oil-producing areas could be producing a lot more ultimately of EV battery capacity.
Well, that's correct. So quite often, when we look at oil sands operations, they will use brine as part of the extraction process in order to recover oil from the oil sands projects. And when they use brine, it actually uncovers large quantities of lithium in the process. Now, the reason that's important is because in the electric vehicle business, those batteries, they use precious metals. And so they use things like lithium. They use nickel. So if we look at your neighboring province of Manitoba, they have some world-class nickel deposits. That would also benefit electric vehicles. The Canadian North and Territories, large gold deposits. So the combination of lithium from Saskatchewan and Alberta, nickel from Manitoba, gold from the Canadian North, the combination of all that means that Canada could become a world-class leader in the electric vehicle supply chain for the battery technologies themselves.
What about rare earth minerals? We mine, we've got a pretty strong and robust sector in this province already. Do they play into battery technology as well?
It does. And so one of the things that I argue, so that's a great point. So one of the things that I think is very important, just so your audience is fully aware, if we look at the month of December, for example, December of 2020, all new vehicle registrations in the country of Norway, 87% of new vehicle registrations were electric. So if we look at these rare earth metals, if we look at these various mineral deposits, all of this stuff, this is a huge opportunity for the prairie provinces to use that understanding of that you guys have gained from oil sands operations, from all of that stuff, and to apply that towards electric vehicles. And one of the things I think that's important is that if Canada were to go down this roadmap, it's really important that the federal government put a national mining strategy in place. And so what that would mean is that we need to have one set of regulations from British Columbia to Newfoundland. So that means the feds would have to work with the provinces. And what that also means is that we need to be competitive on the global market with our costs, and we need to be consistent. And then another important component in this is our ports. So we can allow ports in British Columbia, in Atlantic Canada, and your neighboring province of Manitoba at Hudson Bay in Churchill. They have that beautiful seaport there, which strategically could become of great international importance for Canada. We can't allow those ports to be shut down or interrupted because of demonstrations and protests. So this is an opportunity for the mining industries to work with the environmental industry. And what that does is that allows it allows a coming together of these two groups of people to say, we're going to help make the world greener by supplying electric vehicles, and we're going to supply an important component of that from Canada. Because if Canada doesn't do this, other countries will. And so we can either sit by and watch that economic opportunity pass us by, or we can take advantage of it. And so I argue that Canadians, and especially in a time when we see difficulty that currently exists through no fault of individual oil workers, but we're seeing oil sands projects essentially becoming stranded assets. So this is an opportunity to transition people to the electric vehicle industry, and we can be a world-class leader in this.
Clinton Desveaux, advocate of all things electric vehicle, freelance writer based in Halifax. You know, I like the way you're heading, but part of the problem, of course, is deeper and more culturally entrenched. You know, you have a prime minister who gets a great deal of support in your neck of the woods, zero support in this neck of the woods, who passes Bill C-69 that will make as rigorous all new mining regulatory approaches as he has done in all oil sands and energy developments. He is also a guy who, under the UNDRIP, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, is prepared to give the same protesters you spoke of the ability to block railways and block access to market of any natural resource. So we're in this kind of deeper, Clinton, than simply oil.
Well, I agree with you. And so the reason I argue for a national mining strategy, so the first step of that, as I've discussed, is the regulation side of things so that we can be competitive. Now, the second component speaks to your point that you're making right now, and that's that we have to walk the talk. So we can't, on the one hand, as a nation, say that we believe in a cleaner, more environmentally friendly future for the planet as a whole, and then turn around and say, we're going to take your jobs away from you through no fault of your own in the various oil sands industries, and we're not going to allow you to contribute to the electric vehicle revolution. Because, you know, General Motors has announced this week that they are going to introduce 30 new electric vehicles over the next 4 years in North America. Those Ford pickup trucks that everybody loves to drive, those things are going to be offered in electric. The famous electric car company Tesla is expected to sell somewhere in the vicinity of 1 million electric vehicles in 2021. And so I believe that the government, the opposition parties, the provincial governments, the provincial opposition parties, I believe that this is an issue that they really have to become familiar with quickly if we're going to benefit from this economically. Because there's other countries out there. There's Australia, there's Brazil, there's other places that will supply the supply chain if Canada is not capable of getting its act together. And I would argue, especially in the face of COVID and the economic downturns that we've been facing, that this is a real opportunity to sort of turn the economic engine of Canada back on. And it acts as a uniter as well, because if people in Saskatchewan and people in Alberta and Manitoba, if they realize that they can help contribute to a cleaner, better planet, then that gives them a place with a real economic future in the face of some of the issues that they've been facing from the federal government.
Clinton Desveaux, Halifax-based freelance writer, advocate of all things electric vehicle. Before I let you go, in terms of emerging battery technology, last time we spoke, you were talking about the Tesla 4680, which is their new dry cell. But as you start to look at who makes these elements, as you talk about lithium, rare earth minerals, other things that Canada has, are we still, though, going to be challenged by China, which wants to move in to being even a more dominant producer of many of these elements?
Well, yes, we will be challenged. And so one of my concerns and worries and why I'm proposing a national mining strategy is because if we look at foreign nations, and if we use China as just one example, they've expressed a lot of interest in wanting to buy up mining operations in the Canadian North. And that's been a story that's been occurring over the last 60 days. And so I would argue that this is of strategic national importance for Canada, and that we don't want to allow these rare earth metals or these precious metals. We don't want that to be under the control and auspices of a foreign government. And so for those reasons, I think it's imperative that Canadians from coast to coast to coast really start thinking about this quickly, because these opportunities are going to pass us by, and if we're not paying attention, other countries, whether it's the United States, whether it's China, they will look at those opportunities and figure out how to take advantage of that. And if that means owning and buying up some of these Canadian operations, that could be really problematic for Canadians in general.
Clinton, good having you by as always. Thanks for this and keep in touch.